Hey everybody, it's Kelly. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Therapist. This week we're talking about being no contact with family. More specifically, what does it mean to make that decision? I'm going to go ahead and read a letter that was sent to me by a viewer, sort of base our conversation off of that. Dear Kelly, I'm trying to decide if I should go no contact with my family. I'm a 27-year-old woman and I recently married the most amazing person I've ever met, who is also another woman. My very conservative, very religious parents are still referring to her as my friend. They refused to come to the wedding, and they won't engage with her 5-year-old son, who I am working to adopt. My wife and I were just getting together when he was born. There's no relationship with dad. That's a long story. But her bisexuality, lack of religious interest, and promiscuity, yes, their words, and the fact that she is trying to saddle me with a kid that is not mine, made her a less than desirable partner in their eyes. My parents hate that I left religion. They hate that I'm a lesbian. I don't think they would have ever liked any woman I fell in love with, honestly. They are constantly making comments, ignoring our boundaries in our home, avoiding interacting with my wife when they do come in contact with her, etc. The invite to their 50th anniversary came in the mail last week, and it was addressed to me and a guest. It isn't like I haven't talked to them about this. I've tried to ask them to go to my therapist with me, to go to family counseling with us, even just spend time with my wife and our son and I, and they just won't. They act like I'm still the same obedient, church-going, Christian, straight girl they used to actually care about, and ignore any part of me they don't agree with. It is starting to take a toll on other parts of my life, and I don't know what else to do since they have shown they have no intention of changing. So, it's worth mentioning that has been doctored because I took out all recognizable parts. So there are parts of that letter that I'm not reading out loud. Okay. Like I said before on this channel, as a therapist, I cannot speak to someone's specific circumstance because I can't give specific advice or counseling to someone without, a therapeutic relationship. That said, the question of whether or not to go no contact with a family member or family members that have been disruptive in your life is a hard one. And it is one that many, many people within the queer community and many, many people who have left religion have to face fairly regularly in their lives. There are definitely reasons to consider going no contact with a family member. There are also things that are not reasons to not consider it. Hope that made sense. So that's where we're going to start, because there are things that are said out there that are like absolutely out of pocket to say to someone when they are either already no contact with a family member or thinking about going no contact with a family member. They're ridiculous things. So let's dispel them first before we go into the other part. The following are not reasons to not consider. Yeah, that's right. The following are not reasons to not consider going no contact. And yet people say them anyway. They're still my family. So what? If the reasoning they're your family and so you should treat them well doesn't work for them, then they're my family and so I should allow them to treat me poorly shouldn't work for you. That's the simplest I can put this. Someone being a family member does not give them license to treat you poorly. If you would not put up with that kind of treatment from a friend, if you would not put up that kind of treatment from a stranger, you should not put up with it from family. Being related to someone does not give them more allowance to treat you poorly. And for some reason, we've gotten there as a society. Your family can treat you worse than anyone else can because they're family. So what? So what? Another one that you see a lot is they won't live forever. I don't really understand that either. Again, it becomes the job of the person who is being harmed to remember that the other person who is harming them won't live forever, and so they have to forgive them. It's not said to the person who's doing the harming, not like, hey, you're not going to live forever. Maybe get your crap together and be kinder to the people in your life. Maybe figure out why you are abusive to your children or to your spouse or to your siblings or whoever, and work your stuff out so you're not harming the people you claim to care about. That's not said. It's your parent or sibling or aunt or uncle or grandparent, whoever this is, isn't going to live forever. So you are losing time with them by being no contact with them. So you should forgive them because they won't be around forever. No, that is not a reason to allow someone to treat you poorly. That's just not. Because they gave you life. This is obviously specific to parents, but also not a reason. You did not ask to be born. You didn't. You didn't ask two people to decide to get together and make a baby. You didn't. You don't owe them anything for allowing you to be born. Full stop. You don't owe someone anything for not stopping your birth or for making a decision to have you. It is absolutely bizarre to me that anyone would ever act like giving someone life is a gift that you then owe them for. Like it's a favor, because that's a gift you don't owe somebody back for, right? So it has to be a favor. Like that was a favor that I expect a return on that investment. That's ridiculous because you only have one. Again, something else that you can see said online, or if you've ever been in this situation, hear often. Again, that just doesn't make sense. On the other end of this dysfunctional relationship, but yet is not, and I'm going to use the word abuser, is still given all of the space that they need to do whatever they want to do. And the person who is, sorry about the word, the victim or the recipient of that abuse is still the one responsible for remembering they only have one of that person. And so they have to make all of the effort to forgive, to heal, and to reinvest in that relationship. No. The person who has been harmed is never the one responsible for healing and reintroducing relationship. They owe that person nothing. And this last one is going to ruffle some feathers, so I left it for last. Because mine died. If you lost your parent early, if you lost a sibling or a grandparent or somebody very close to you in a sudden way, and you didn't get to say the things you needed to say or heal the things that needed to be healed, or you in a great place and you mourn the time that you didn't get, I am sorry. And those are your feelings. Okay. My wife and I, have a family member that we are no contact. So there is a personal connection to the things that people say when they discover that a person in this role is someone you don't talk to. People get shocked, they get judgmental. So if you are somebody who decides to go no contact with a close family member, understanding that none of those are appropriate reasons for you to not make that decision is really important. Also, it's important for you to understand you owe no one an explanation for anything. Making the decision to go no contact with a family member is a difficult one. And anyone who thinks that there's anybody out there who just goes, okay, we're not talking anymore, has probably never been in a situation where they've had to do this, right? So in that vein, here's some really fair reasons why you might want to think about going no contact. And the first one is ignoring of boundaries. If you have set boundaries with a family member and they have willingly ignored them repeatedly, you might not have a lot of other options, because your options are change your boundary or change the relationship because the boundary is not being respected. And in the case of, say, this letter, that boundary does involve a child. It involves another human. It involves recognition of a marriage and a person as a whole, like leaving of a religion. How many people that are watching this video now or have been subscribers on this channel have had people in their lives ignore the fact that they have started questioning or have left their religion or have discovered something about themselves that makes them not members of the cishet community anymore, and have not had that boundary respected by a family member repeatedly. When that happens, when someone has shown a willful disregard for who you are and what you expect out of relationship with you, what do? And I'm not telling you what you have to do. I'm just saying you have to ask that question. Either your boundaries change or your relationship with the person changes. And I'm going to be honest with you, when your boundaries change, that means you take the hit. When your relationship with a person changes, that means you get to stay who you are. Okay, let's talk about abuse. This is a little bit of a different one because this is one that is hard to say I've talked to them about this, because if you've been your whole life mentally, physically, financially, sexually, emotionally abused, you're obviously not going to that person and saying, please stop doing this to me. When you are able to break free, you're likely leaving, hopefully getting help, right? But when you're in a place where you can cut ties with them, I hope that you're cutting ties with them when you're able to. But it is one of those things that people out there in the wild feel like you owe them an explanation for. If you're raised by someone who is abusive to you your whole life, you are able to leave that situation and cut ties with them completely. When you share that information at some point in the wild, in your grown-up walking around their world, sometimes people feel entitled to that information. If you tell them, yeah, I don't talk to my mom anymore, they're going to ask why. You don't owe them that explanation. And also, they're going to ask. I'm just putting that out there so you can be prepared. Understand that you don't have to talk about it. And also, you have nothing to be ashamed of, but it's your story and you don't owe it to anybody. Okay, let's talk about religion. Sometimes, a lot of times, leaving a religion can feel like a line in the sand, especially the more high demand that religion is. And so if you leave a religion and family members stay, and the family members persist in attempting to draw you back in, if you've attempted to draw that boundary, like, we're not talking about this here, I'm not engaged in that religion anymore, this is not going to be something that we're doing anymore, whatever you're saying to them, if they are still sort of pushing that agenda with you, that boundary is going to have to be drawn firmer and firmer and firmer again until they change or until you do, or until the relationship is cut. Like, those are the options in reality. Either they need to stop trying to pull you back in, you go back to it, or you stop communicating. Those are the options. So the question becomes, do you want to go back to it? Do they want to change? Like, do they see you as an individual who gets to have your own choices? Or are they so blinded by the fact that they're terrified you're going to go to hell, or whatever they think the thing is that's driving them to ignore the things you've said to them? Is the stress that relationship is bringing into your life detrimental to how you want to live your life? Like, those are the questions you have to weigh out for yourself when you're trying to decide if that is a relationship you're willing to sever. And another thing that's kind of important for, right now is political disagreements. And this is one that gets me heated, so I'm going to try to really behave right now, because these are things that get into the algorithm and people get really angry about, and then there's fights in the comments and everything, and just don't have the energy for that right now. Can we agree to disagree? Sure. Unless your opinion that you want me to agree to disagree on involves me not having rights and not being seen as a human. So people who want to agree to disagree and remove my right to be married, say, or, I don't know, own land, or make decisions for my body, and they think that's completely fine, we can just agree to disagree on that. That's not a thing for me. Am I saying that has to be a thing for you? No, I'm not. But you can see where that would cause some tension in a relationship, right? We are seeing, possibly more than any other time in most of our lives, I don't want to speak for everybody, but really more than any other time in my life, where political differences are splitting people apart. And when you are the one drawing the boundary, you are being called immature, you are being called shallow, you are being told that you don't care about relationships, and you're being called hysterical or dramatic or whatever. And in reality, that's someone else's attempt to belittle your priorities and belittle the things you care about. So it's just another boundary breaking, right? If that is happening within your family, that is one of those things that could potentially mean you have to decide if you're going to continue to be in contact with that person. This video is going up in close proximity to a very big potential turning point in our country. What are you going to do? Are you watching what your family members are doing and deciding how your relationship's going to be with them based on how they act the next couple of weeks? Because you're not alone if you are. But political differences that do cause you a great deal of distress are actually an okay reason to cut ties if that's what you need. Some will say that people today are fast to cut ties with family members, with friends, with people in general. I don't know that I would necessarily agree with that statement, because I don't know from the outside if you can really judge ever how fast someone is to cut ties with someone else. Because from the outside, I think it always looks like it's fast, because you don't know what has happened in that relationship. No one ever actually knows what has happened inside the heart and mind of that person who has made the decision. No one really knows what's happened in that relationship. You don't know if you're not the person who's made the decision. the last part of this, I think it's important that we have the conversation about what happens once you do go no contact. There can be an adjustment period. Some people might call it a mourning period. Not having that person in your life anymore, whether they were in it daily or not, does necessitate a shift in the way that you look at things, the way you understand things. The more significant a role that person played in your life, the more of a shift there needs to happen. And depending on the person, often they won't just go quietly. And if they do, a lot of times they'll come back. Because if there's one thing I can tell you in my years of knowing people as a therapist and in my own life experience, people who don't respect boundaries don't respect boundaries. And until they do the work to understand how to respect boundaries, they're going to continue to disrespect boundaries. So sometimes, once you've gone no contact with someone, when they decide they've had enough of not talking to you, they may pop back up. In fact, they often do. And at that point, they'll say and do a lot of things to make you think things have changed. And I'm going to be really honest, the majority of time things have not changed. If and when people do pop back up, it's important to decide what you're going to do if that happens. There are no answers here that are one size fits all. Every relationship is different. Every person is different. There is no, like, here you go, here's the guidebook to handling this type of relationship. It doesn't exist. But especially this time of year, as we're going into the holidays, heading into the time of year where people talk so much about family and about gathering and all of that sort of thing, it gets hard to see things clearly when it comes to family, when it comes to connection. It's really important that you understand if someone's relationship with you is harmful to you, you do get to make decisions to change that relationship. I have a number of other videos about being no contact in general. I'm going to link all of them in the description because they kind of deal with this in different phases and might be helpful to you depending on what phase you're in sort of handling this. If I don't have one that answers the phase that you're in, go ahead and drop that in the comments and I would love to make one that would handle the phase that you yourself are in. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you all next time. And until then, take care of yourselves and each other.